All right, Brandon, here we go. We're talking best wide receivers in the game today. That after a recent poll of executives, coaches, scouts, and players named the top 10 pass catchers in the game. The star-studded list starts with 1.Adams and 1.Hopkins. Then you got Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, and Julio in the top 5. Then we have Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Michael Thomas, DK Metcalf, and A.J. Brown. There's a lot on this list. There were a lot left off this list. I thought I'd see OBJ on here. Brandon, you are our #1 wide receiver.
Yeah.
I'm a close second. What was your biggest takeaway from the list?
Listen. Well, first of all, this is the most uncomfortable thing for me to ever talk about on television. I don't know why. I could talk about DBs. I could talk about quarterbacks. I could talk about Jay Cutler. I could talk about myself. But when we talk about the top 10 wide receivers, it's so uncomfortable. One, because we're sensitive. And what happens is if you don't put the guy in the right spot, they're going to end up calling you, tweeting you, or maybe unfollowing you. So we got to talk about that, all right? But when you look at this as from the other side as well, there's so many other guys that's deserving to be in this conversation. Where's Adam Thielen? Talk to me. Why isn't Adam Thielen on the top 10? Where's Justin Jefferson? We're talking about guys that can get it done.
Remove somebody. Take somebody.
Yeah,
and you don't want to do that.
Well, listen, I'm not going to remove anybody.
Who are you removing?
I'm not going to
Exactly. That's why he's not on there, buddy.
I'm going to rearrange.
Because
well, let me rearrange
top 10s is it's only 10 people. Well, go ahead. That's fine. Rearrange it. But unless you remove somebody, Thielen ain't getting on there, pal. But go ahead. I'll leave you alone.
Ooh, wows. It's hard. So I'm going to rearrange this a little bit. First of all, when I look at the top wide receivers, that means you can beat man-to-man. That means you're going against Jalen Ramsey. He is the best in the league when you talk about at the DB position. Why? Because he can follow you anywhere in the field. You go in the slot, he can cover you. You go outside to the wide side, he can cover you. You want to go backside to the short side, he can cover you. It doesn't matter. There's only 3 or 4 guys in the NFL that can get the job done like Jalen Ramsey. So you take these wide receivers, you put them in front of Jalen. Who can beat this guy? So that's what I'm working off of. I'm not working off quarterbacks. I'm not working off stats. 1.Hopkins right now is the #1 wide receiver in the game. He's not the quickest. He's not the fastest, but he'll beat you time after time after time, and when it's one-on-one, and also in the tight windows. He's going to make every single catch, and that's open in the National Football League. It's not about, oh, am I 2 yards, do I have 2 yards of separation, 3 yards? It's about inches, and when it's about inches, you got to have strong hands to get the job done in those clutch moments. 3rd and 7, game is on the line. 3rd and 1 and 2, you got one-on-one. You know that 70% of the time, they're going to play one in that position. Can you win on a slant? Can you win on the back shoulder? Can you win on a non-stop? This guy has done it with no quarterback. Go back before Deshaun Watson, he was getting it done. You add Deshaun Watson, he's getting it done. Right. And then, in AZ, his first year, he gets it done. So then you go to my #2, and this is Adams. Go out to Green Bay. Yes, he has an offensive-minded coach. Yes, he has Aaron Rodgers. But I can assure you one thing. This boy's feet is something different. Adams has everything. He can play in the slot, he can play on the front side, he can play on the back side. Whilst this dude is just different. And Diggs, he can easily be in the conversation to be #1 as well. His start and stop is next level. The NFL's never seen any quickness like this before. The dude is small, but he plays huge. So those are my top 3. I put 1.Hopkins 1, Adams 2, and Diggs 3. And man, you can easily interchange all of them.
Okay. I love that. The fact that you hate lists so much and that Nick loves lists so much just makes this a wonderful, wonderful segment. You've never heard this take before. Brandon Marshall, a little bit like my mother when we're doing the wedding list. Like, Mom, if you want, Aunt Sharon in, someone's got to go. She's like, no one's going. Just more people are being added. I'm like, all right, more people are being added. Hey, I want to
give me top 20.
I want to show you a quote from the Chicago Tribune about someone that belongs on the top 10, Brandon, Allen Robinson. If we could put up the quote, and I'll read it to you, because it mentions another great wide receiver. Again, spoiler alert, it's Brandon. So basically he's saying, like, hey, he had a great year, right? Robinson had 102 catches, 1,200 yards, 6 touchdowns last season, becoming just the 4th player in team history to record at least 100 receptions in a season. Brandon Marshall reached that milestone twice with 118 catches in 2012 and 100 the next season. So 2 questions for you. 1, do you think he'll be able to replicate last season's success? And how does having a rookie quarterback sort of fit into it? We don't know when Justin Fields is going to start, but do you like the idea of having a fresh start? Or do you think Allen Robinson's like, oh, I like old, reliable red rifle?
Oh, no, I mean, he'll get it done with anybody. There's a couple wide receivers. That's why I talked about DeAndre Hopkins. When you have these big wide receivers, that's not the quickest, that's not the fastest, you tend to overlook them. You go with the guys, oh, they're fast, they're so quick, look at their moves. But this is a guy that you can put backside, short side of the field, mono versus mono, okay? And he's going to win play after play after play. It doesn't matter. It's not going to be a lot of separations, but his hands are strong. He can adjust to the ball in the air. It doesn't matter. All you got to do is, if you see one-on-one, throw him the ball. It's not that hard, Chicago. I can assure you that. All you got to do is read the field, quarterback. If it's one high and you have numbers that you have it backside, just go slant. Just go 9 stop. Just go back shoulder. Just go. He is open when he's covered. Just throw it up. Wilds, I'm so glad you brought him up, because this is someone that can easily be in the top 10, but because of this situation, nobody talks about him, Nick.
So here's what I find so interesting about all of this, because Wilds is right. Pardon me, I love lists, and I could parse a bit on this. I think Keenan Allen might be a touch high. I personally, even though he was hurt, would have Odell on there. Like, there's a few things. I'd probably have DK ahead of Mike Evans, but for the most part, they've got the bones of this right. But what I find most interesting is what this list represents as far as the undeniable fact that we are in the golden age of wide receivers. And here's what I mean. You mentioned Thielen, Odell, Allen Robinson, and Justin Jefferson. I think you mentioned either on or off the air. 4 guys that didn't make the top 10. So I love lists enough that I went back in 5-year increments and looked at 95, 2000, 2005, 2010. What would the top 10 wide receiver lists have been then? In 1995, we had 5 all-timers playing in their primes. But once you got past those guys, in the top 10 was Yancey Thigpen and Brett Perriman. In 2000, in the top 10 would have been Easy Ed McCaffrey and Eric Moulds. In 05, in your top 10 receivers was Joey Galloway and Donald Driver. Again, all good players, but guys who wouldn't crack the current top 15. Even as late as 2010, Mike Wallace and Santana Moss were clear-cut top 10 receivers. And it's really starting around 2015, which you look at 2015, Brandon, you had a monster year that year, and it's like, geez Louise, like how many, we've got a dozen great receivers. So here's what I want to compare it to. Can we show the top 10 running backs list? Because it's a reversal of how it would have been in the 90s. So there's nothing against Joe Mixon and Josh Jacobs. They're good players. But if you look at like the 2000 or 1995, Jerome Bettis had like 1,300 yards and was barely a top 10 running back. So what you're seeing is not only is the game becoming more aerial, but the skill level has met the moment. You are seeing the deepest crop of awesome receivers we've ever had. And it started around near the tail end of your career, Brandon, to right now, where it's like a top 10 list, your rookie year, Brandon, was not that hard to make. It's like, do we have 10 great receivers? I don't know. Now you're leaving awesome players off, and that to me speaks to how deep the position is right now.
Why? But let's talk about the why, Nick. You 100%. You had guys going from getting drafted, going from college into the NFL, and sitting for a year or two. The system was too complicated. The guys in front of them were just better. They couldn't make that transition quick enough. Go back, and then you can also break down those times and see how many guys exploded as rookie. That's why when I talked about Justice Jefferson, said, why isn't he on this list? He just beat all of Randy Moss's rookie records, right? This dude is a guy that can get it done over and over again. The reason why is because 7-on-7. That's